And we need a motion to accept or amend the agenda.
I'd like to make a request, if we could. We have some members from Fly the Witches Walk, and they would like to have 5 minutes. If we could add them to the agenda as part of the deputations, we give them a couple of minutes to speak.
Do I have a seconder? James? Brock? Are you comment?
No.
Okay. If there's no questions, all in favor? Carried. So that will be added to the agenda, and that you are moving the agenda at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if any? None noted. Approval of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held September 21st. Trevor and Brock. All in favor? Carried. Minutes of the regular council meeting held September 21st. Ray and James. All in favor? Carried. Okay. I think we'll go with the 5.1 that's on here, First Ladies, and that's Carl Ellis and Bernie Bailey. Presentation on Hospital Capital Campaign, Hospital Foundation Capital Campaign.
Thanks, Mr. Reid, Council. Thanks for taking time to listen to what we have to say tonight. I know some of you would have seen presentations in the past around the development that's happening at the hospital and the public school, but I'll go through very briefly what all is involved. And then my friend Mr. Bailey will talk about the Foundation's capital campaign. So the hospital redevelopment is split into 3 different projects, so to speak. There's the hospital renovation itself, and then we need to replace all of our diagnostic imaging equipment in the hospital. And then, as we've chatted about here before, the community health campus development in the Wingen Public School. So I'll touch briefly on each of those throughout the presentation. The hospital itself is going to be redeveloping about 15,000 square feet.
So the other way, Bernie.
The other way? So about 30% of the hospital itself. As standards change, the requirement for space has changed, and so there's a few of our departments that are increasing quite substantially in the space required in the redevelopment. Our oncology and pharmacy in particular, the sterilization area, our operating room and post-operative care area, and our visiting specialists area in particular require additional space. So it's about 6,000 square feet. And the approval that we received from the Ministry of Health said that we weren't allowed to expand the footprint of the hospital, so no bricks and mortar expansion beyond the 4 walls of the hospital. So the increasing requirement for space is challenging our internal movement within the hospital. The purchase of the Wingen Public School was a great opportunity for us, both to create something that the community is needing in terms of additional primary care space within the community, but also to relieve some of those space pressures in the hospital that I spoke about. The plans at this point involve converting the gymnasium into a 2-layer clinic, accommodate 7 physicians, plus the family health team all in one space. And that's something that we don't have now. They are scattered throughout the basement and back area of the hospital. About 40 different offices and meeting rooms on those 2 stories. Within the hospital itself, there's some pictures in your package that outline what our current pharmacy and oncology looks like. And that area right now is far too small for the standards, and you can imagine chemotherapy drugs are quite toxic, and so we're relocating our pharmacy adjacent to oncology, which eliminates that travel back and forth between the 2 departments. Sterilization is currently in 1 room, And so dirty and clean and such is all within one area. And the new standards require bringing it into a dirty area, cleaning it, and then storing it in a separate clean area. And so one-way movement and traffic throughout there, and we don't have that in the current space. That's an area that has been slated for improvement for some time. Team station, so may be known more commonly as a nursing station, but the nomenclature that we use now is team station. It's significantly undersized. And we have 3 team stations allocated throughout that second floor of the hospital, and that's all going to be consolidated into one. Having 3 is not a particularly efficient use of either space or people's time. You lose out on a lot of communication with that. Surgical and recovery area. So right now, patients prep on the second floor, they go up to the 3rd floor for the procedure, they recover across the hall, and then back down to the 2nd floor for some post-op care and get ready to go home. Instead of moving the patients all over the hospital, we're going to move the instruments up and down from the 2nd to 3rd floor, but the patient experience will all be on that 3rd floor. So they'll come in, they'll prep, they'll have the procedure, and they'll recover and discharge off of that same floor. So it's a far more patient-friendly area. The sterilization in our operating rooms are in the oldest core of the hospital. It was built in the early 50s, and so you can imagine that standards and such have changed since that time. And that's an area where we really do need to concentrate some of our time and attention. Ambulatory care, so walking into the hospital, visiting a specialist, perhaps having a minor procedure, and then walking out at the end of your visit. It's what we know in the hospital world as ambulatory care. It's a growing part of our business, not just in Wingham, but in small hospitals everywhere. That's an important part of our business, and we really don't have any space for it now. We couple it together in the back of the emergency department, and we shoehorn it in where we can. We're going to create 7 exam rooms, waiting room reception, so a specific area for ambulatory care. That's a big improvement to the hospital. We've already started some things on our own. Over the course of the last year, improved the front entranceway with a new ramp. Prior to that, I think we were one of the only hospitals in the province that had a set of steps up to our front door, which wasn't particularly accessible. And then the diagnostic imaging equipment, as I said, it's nearing the end of its life, and we're going to have to spend a couple of $1 million to replace that. So we've got a lot of work. We've probably got more investment in the hospital and healthcare in Wingham than for the last generation or so. It's a significant investment, close to $16 million across that campus. And how we're funding it is split up in different pools depending on the project. So things that the Ministry of Health has approved and we've sought their endorsement of, they'll pay for 90% of renovation costs, and they expect the community to come up with the other 10%. Any equipment that we buy anywhere in the hospital, that's all local resources. That has to be community that comes up with those dollars. The ministry won't pick up any of that. Diagnostic imaging equipment is included in that. That's all local expenditure. And then the community health campus is some creative financing in terms of community funding. We've got some traditional loan funding, and we've got some rental income from the building that we've leased to other tenants that will help subsidize and pay for the operating costs on the other half. So rather creative funding model there. In terms of the hospital impact in the community, there's some statistics there within your package. Over the course of a year, across all of our set pieces of business, we would have 38,000 patient visits in a year. That would include lab and imaging and emergency department and everything. A little over 11,000 emergency departments, so it's a busy spot. And depending on how you slice the population, we serve beyond the borders of Wingham, so to speak, a population probably in the 15 or 16,000 range. One of the areas within the hospital that has had a lot of attention locally in the last few weeks and months is the chemotherapy clinic. It is the only clinic in Huron and Bruce counties. The next closest ones would be in Owen Sound, Stratford, and London. Certainly, if we burrow into the numbers, about 50% of the chemotherapy patients that we treat in that clinic reside in Huron County, and most of the rest of the Bruce County, we do serve a few from Perth and Gray and Wellington. And so that's what we're up to in the hospital. We've got a lot planned and a lot underway. And in order to do that, we need to go to our community. Bernie's.
We're gonna ask for money. 4.5 million more. The chart you're seeing before you is a guideline that we put together, where we want to go, the suggested gifts. And they vary a lot, and the percentage of the goals is showing you on there. Just one, which comes to $4 million. The campaign timeline, fundraising campaign is 18 months or until our goal is met. Pledge period for campaign contributions, 5 years, $500,000 or over $100,000 annually. The construction will be, with the completed renovations, will be done in 2.5 years. This is a shovel in the ground working now. The donor recognition program, again, you have a sheet with that one. You can have, whether it be a room or a category, donors can have their name above a room or space or door, depending on how much they give. It's pretty well self-explanatory. Our hospital, our future team, Mark Fox is the campaign chair. Art Cameron is the deputy chair. I'm with municipalities. Jenny Grove is business and industry, and I know I said her last name wrong, I apologize. Mark Leslie is for personal gifts, Andy McBride is community engagement, Scott Millers is public awareness, and Nicole Jutsi is our campaign manager. Hospitals are driven by economic development, close to 200 jobs in the Wingham District Hospital. Local physicians and the North Huron Family Health Team enjoy employment close to 40 people. Business and industry often require access to physicians and hospital servicing before considered location and community. And that's a big one, and we've all known that for years. If you don't have a healthcare system, a hospital ready, you're not going to get industrial growth. Here in Bruce counties have a higher population of seniors than a provincial average. These citizens typically require and expect access to health and services. A vibrant community requires access for modern health care services. And that's pretty well the end of our presentation. I'd just like to point a few things out. One, the economic development for North Huron creates health care for anyone that wants to use it. It is an economic driver. The healthcare system is actually the #1 employer of North Huron, believe it or not. North Huron has the only chemotherapy clinic in Huron Bruce. We pull a lot of people in, we bring them to town. Again, when they're in town, we're going to spend money, an economic driver. Renovations will be finished in 2.5 years. We are moving ahead with this. We've got the $6 million grant from the provincial government, which started everything rolling again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to ask you where you fit into this project. There's that next. Thank you.
Comments from councilors or questions? Trevor.
Is the campaign looking for a pledge over a number of years, or are they looking for, I guess, what is the request? I guess my question is.
Well, what we would like is $500,000 over 5 years. The goal that we'd be looking for our host community. And just popping that out there, I'm going to run that right back to the council to see how they feel about that.
I think, Bernie, you know our treasure very well. You know how tough it is to get money. You're going to have to deal with her.
Jim, just so you know, we did have a previous meeting because of my experience on council. I felt that we should have a meeting with the CEO and explain where we're going and what we'd like to do, knowing that the council makes the final decision. But we have budget coming up, and in all fairness to the staff, we had that conversation with them. So I'm not sure if that filtered down to Don yet or not, but just so they have an idea of what's going on. I would suggest that maybe councilors could ask Donna how things are looking.
Sorry, we haven't discussed it at all. I haven't heard anything. This is kind of our first.
We haven't had our first drafted budget discussions yet, so that's
So
where
time is
that will
good.
filter in. So Donna's aware of the request, but you know, we wouldn't typically be having those conversations until we get our first drafts of budget in. And typically in my past experience, when we have larger asks like this, we bring them forward through the budget deliberation process, because it's going to be important for council to see what their overall budget is looking like before they make any large commitments. So we can certainly bring this request forward with budget deliberations and you know, see how it might fit into.
I do appreciate that, and again, being on council before, we wanted to get in before you were doing your budget for that very reason. It's difficult for council or staff to all of a sudden try to come up with money after the fact, and we are asking for a rather large donation. Having said that, we are the economic development drivers of our community. We are the biggest employer, and this is development. Not 5 years, 10 years down the road, but we're doing it now. We're creating jobs.
If there's, Ray, did you?
Yeah, Bernie, I can really think this is one of the most important issues that's going to be on the plate here, because we do need the hospital. We all know that. So I'm sure once we have some talks, the words know that we can come up with something, but I just don't have my pocket. Anyway, we will, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very important.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Well, on behalf of council, thank you for bringing this forward to us before we really get going on budget, and we will have to look at it in the parameters of the budget. So thank you.
Thank you very kindly.
Okay. That we will entertain Bev, Vicky, and who wants to speak first, or
United we stand.
good?
I think this got into a bit of a gong show. And that was not the plan, and we did not plan that at all. It was our timing of what we got told, and in our minds, in our time, we just knew it was not going to be able to work to get it to be done in time for the regulations that was asked of us. We are not upset about that. This is the way it goes. That is how it is. But if you saw our stuff, I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Witches Walk, on our trail, when we did it on the trail, and then when we took it to the shed, it's not no one prop here, one prop here, one prop here. It is full of everything. So to spray all that, get it set up and ready to go, and know for sure everything is sprayed and looked after properly, and hoping that the spray will be here in time coming from Vancouver, we were concerned that this was not feasible. There's 3 of us here, and there's 1 more on our committee, and us 4 are the ones that are the prime workers that set this up, with the help of a husband who is available a couple hours, or a son, or a daughter, or grandchildren, or whoever. So we didn't want everybody to be getting so upset about this. We didn't say that we're done doing the Witches Walk forever. We don't know what our plans are for next year, but yeah, we thought this needed to get brought up to everybody to understand that we are not upset, and we don't want everybody else upset, and it's caused.
Yes, we know the regulations are put in place for a reason. And we were all on board with all of them. I mean, because they're put there for the safety of everybody that's involved with everything. It was the time constraints. There was not going to be enough time to do what was asked of us. We did not have enough notice, basically, and we spent hours on Friday brainstorming, trying to figure out what we could do to make it work. There was no solutions. We need 24 extra hours in every day for the next 2 weeks.
Trevor,
Can I just ask, when you say spray, what are you talking about? I just don't understand.
Have you been to the witches walk, Trevor?
So no, I have not. So
The spray, we met up with David Sparling and Pat and James Marshall on October 1st to go through regulations and everything else. And one of the regulations James was asking is that everything had to be sprayed with a fire retardant, which is understandable. When he explained the reason why was the fact that we have corn that hangs in that shed that you walk through, like you're in a cornfield with lights like flecking and everything. He said all it could have took was one teenager lighting a lighter and that corn going off. My son was in that corn last year helping. When I heard it put that way, and we're not looking, it made us realize that this is no joke and we don't want nobody hurt. We have family in that shed helping with us. We have public coming in to do this. That is, we've always stressed. And if anybody hasn't went to the Witches Walk, we have our rules right in the front of keep your hands to yourself. So rules is not a thing we are fighting against. It's just the time. So that is our biggest thing.
The cost of the spray was going to be between $500 and $550.
And for when we weren't even sure if it was still going to be enough to spray everything properly.
okay, James,
So if we had came to you, say, the 1st of September, rather than the 1st of October,
Yes.
would it been a little more feasible?
It would have been, like now you're looking at weather. The last, how many days have we had rain? And where are we going to spray this? And most of our crops is in a shed that has to be pulled out to get sprayed and dried. And if we knew in September or a little bit even earlier, we could have had this stuff out and drying in the natural air and putting it back in and ready to go to start. That's all. That's all it was.
Trevor,
sorry, is this a new regulation? Like is this something that they needed, like the Witches Walk's been going on for 14 years. Like, what's changed? I guess is it, the regulations changed, it's changed. I guess that's my question.
It's my understanding, I'm just sort of getting up to speed because I haven't been here in previous years, but it's my understanding that it was always previously outdoors on the trail. And last year it was moved indoors, maybe a bit last minute.
No, it was asked the year prior to that of the fall, I guess, that if we could use the shed. It was not last minute. We were never required of that. We were only asked that there was to be fire extinguishers and smoke alarms in there.
And everybody had a flashlight. The exit signs were not covered, no open flames. I mean, we always thought safety. I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, that was not an issue. Okay. This year, though, there was more stuff brought upon us that was not asked of the year before. So that kind of, we went, oh, okay. So now you're adding all these extra things that was not the year before, and that's fine. Regulations change. But it kind of threw us being at the 1st of October. If it was the 1st of September, yeah, it could have been more feasible. It could have maybe made it work better, and planned.
So it was brought to my attention last Thursday, and it started with some insurance requirements. So again, we're sort of looking at all of our committee policies and making sure that people are adequately covered with insurance. And it was my understanding that you believe previously you were covered under the township's insurance. And so we were looking at ways to mitigate that because you're not a committee of council and therefore really not covered under the municipality's insurance. So I was reaching out to the BIA to see if they would consider putting it under the umbrella of the BIA so that you could be covered under the BIA's insurance, and they were quite supportive of that. So that's sort of how the ball first started rolling. And then we became aware of the fire inspection issues, so staff brought that to me as well. And so we worked Thursday to try to say, okay, timelines are short here. What can we do to make sure that this event can go forward? Because it is, quick notice. Keeping in mind that next year we have to start thinking about things in advance and what can we do to mitigate things. So I know the fire chief had spoken to me about, smoke alarms. And we didn't specifically talk about fire retardant spray, but we talked about some mitigating measures, making sure that the doors were propped open because they don't swing the proper way. So if the place goes up, people could be trapped and that sort of thing.
We do though. They don't have the panic hardware, but we did learn after our tour on, they do swing the right way. Without the panic hardware, we still felt they needed to be not switch propped open, but we agreed that they would be able to swing open, not locked in any fashion.
Okay. So, we did discuss ways that we could mitigate that. So I thought things were looked after, and I was really disappointed to hear on the weekend that the walk was canceled.
When Murray Nesbitt was on council, he had us covered under the Huron insurance. And then we got clarification when Craig Snell was there, so I got clarification from him too that we were still covered, so. Yeah. And we did come to council last November. It's not like this is, all of a sudden.
So is there anything we can do at this point to salvage your event? Because we really don't want to see it go by the wayside.
No.
There's still not enough time.
And everything has been taken down on the shed and put away because we figured we could clean up and that's it. It's one of those things, it's just a lesson learned that we, time is time. So, but we didn't want it to get the way it went. Like it was, people were getting quite upset about it from what I've heard and that and phone calls and everything else. But
All I put, social media is the quickest way to get the word out. So we just put on there, and basically my quote was, it was with heavy hearts that we have to cancel Witches Walk due to time restraints with regulations that were given to us October 3rd. That's exactly what it said. Time restraints.
yes.
I mean, it is something that is unique to Blythe. It has been. No.
I know I did speak to the fire chief today, and he said that, his students were willing to do all of the spraying and that sort of thing to be able to get the spraying of the materials done.
Okay, so envision this. We get committees done, we get all of the stuff done. Every other year, we're last minute putting things up. So Saturday afternoon, you're going to get people in there. Co-op students are not working to spray this stuff. Plastic had to be sprayed twice. Like we scrambled, right, the last day, and then you can't have people walking through the day you spray. I mean, that would be probably not a good idea either. No, we
thought Friday was a very hard day for us. This was not an easy decision. It was not. We love doing this. This thing has helped out a lot of groups in this area. Like it doesn't help out just one group. We have helped out the water fire department. We've helped out 2 churches. We've helped out the scouts, the
food bank, the Christmas Bureau, the Lions Club, the
48
like the Greenway Trail.
We've helped out we've helped out lots of people. Like this is something we look forward to making money to give out to help out people that are in need of help. And it's too bad. Like it really is. We're not jumping for joy that we had to put it all away and not get to use it. We worked a lot of years to collect this stuff and make this, So it's just one of those things. It's just too bad. It is. And yes, I know he offered the help, but we still had to get the stuff up, and it should have been sprayed. In my mind, it shouldn't be getting sprayed when it's sitting up ready to go. It should have been sprayed beforehand, that it's ready to go, that we can just carry it in and place it. So I don't have to worry about people walking through with packs on their back to spray it because it was coming in a big jug that was going to be poured into sprayers that people had to stand there and spray. I don't want that being done in the shed. I'd like that done outside where it will dry and it's done, you know. So it just, no, not enough time. And that's just the way it is.
And it's my understanding, once it's sprayed, it
It's
doesn't
good.
have to be done.
Again,
Technically, but the corn would have to be sprayed every year, and anybody that was in different areas would have to be, it would all have to be sprayed every year.
new things.
Anything, any people that brought in new areas would have to be sprayed every year.
Which is fine. Once the major bulk of it is all sprayed, that is here and there. Like the little things doesn't take long, but like we have chairs and furniture, couches that are part of seeds that like, these are big objects that are not going to dry in I don't think in a half an hour. You know, just
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of pre-planning that has to be done from, I think, both sides. Like, I think in one respect, I think part of our need is to understand what all events are within our municipality to know, then help our communities be a little bit proactive on what new regulations or non-regulations are needed. So I think from the standpoint for me, I don't like to hear any event be canceled because of something that could have been proactively looked at. But understanding there's a lot of things that go on and a lot of moving parts. So I respect your decision. It's your guys' decision, and I think you've made a decision based on a lot of input, not just one specific time that you've been given here. But I think from our standpoint, I think we look at all, not just the Witches Walk, but all events within the municipality to find out whether there's things that we just haven't really thought about before, and maybe those groups need to be more informed about what requirements are needed from the municipality standpoint. So, I know it's with the economic development stuff, with the listing of all the rec programs and all that stuff. I don't know whether that falls into this realm, but to me, I think the list of all that stuff needs to be somehow mitigated so this type of incident doesn't happen in the future.
I think one of the things that Connie's JCP program person is working on is an event planning guide. So I think that that will be beneficial as well to let people know what inspections are required, and perhaps we can build some timelines into that would allow for any mitigating measures to be taken without affecting the event. So it's a learning process here for us, and I think it's very unfortunate that we don't have your event happening this year. I wish there was some way that we could still salvage that, and if you can think of any way, we'd be happy to assist in whatever way that we can. But I still think we need to sit down together as a group and think about next year well in advance on how we're going to get some of these things happen so we don't lose it. Because I'm afraid, once you lose something for a year, is it easy just to see it go away? And
It's exactly why I came to council right after the Witches Walk last year. Because I don't know all the regulations.
Rob?
I think we all agree that this has been a tremendous event for the past 14 years, and it's a real shame that this sort of thing has happened. I think just to add a bit to what Trevor and Sharon have said, I think it's a breakdown in communications here, and we need to make clear what kind of committee you have and how that committee looks after their end of the bargain, and we need to look at the same thing, how we relate to that committee. And so I think we can learn a lot from this unfortunate experience this year, so we'll make sure that it doesn't happen next year.
I would like to make one comment that I probably shouldn't. But you should have picked up the phone and called me yesterday, on Sunday.
Well, things have happened, decisions have been made. And I said, thank you very much for the three of you coming and explaining it a little better to the rest of council. Basically, it was yesterday afternoon when I looked at an email and seen that there was a problem. Thank you very much for your understanding of the regulations and that not everybody gets all the information that they probably should have, but we're in a world of, I'll say, over-information, because the amount of stuff that's coming, well, can come in through your phone. Basically, it would probably take 10 people to read it in the daytime. So that, thank you very much for your understanding.
Thank you for giving us the time.
Bill?
I would like to apologize on behalf of us because of the failure. We hope it will continue next year. We solve some of the problems because they're not just related to your event. If your event can be on the books for a year and we fail to come and explain to you what the requirements of that kind of lead time bothers me, that what we could miss in events that may come to us in a shorter time. So it has pointed out some flaws in the system. Hopefully we'll get them all corrected, but hopefully you will also continue the event next year. And if there's something we can do differently to make sure that it happens, please bring it forward. But I understand as well with this council and us that it is our responsibility when people book events in our facilities. It's up to us. It's how we look at regulations and what we require from them, and not for those people to come to us and ask us. We should be doing, we have to be proactive about this and make sure it's done up front. So again, I apologize for myself. I'm going to miss the witch's walk. I've missed it since I was in my backyard 2 years ago. I used to sit out here with a beverage, as they say, and listen to the screams in the woods. So, you feel free to come back and suddenly stand at the end of my yard and scream if you wish.
What time are you home?
Whatever you need.
On a positive note, it has been successful in the last 14 years. We've given a lot of money back to our community. So if it goes on great. If it doesn't, at least it is good well.
Thank you. I apologize. This isn't the first time this has happened. It's happened with another. We're fortunate enough to get together in the last few days, so we put the show on. It's happened before, but however, apologies. Please,
I'd like to thank you for working with these two of us. I know the hours you put into it. That's the event. I do apologize for my time.
Thank you.
Moving to reports. Leaves report. And I forgot to write the BMX bicyclist's name from Blythe that won provincial recognition for winning his class in the BMX series this year, as well as Lucas Townsend from Blythe winning his class at the international plowing match. Basically, we're in the fall, and the number of the fall events are taking place. My understanding is most of the tickets for the Belgrade Fall Supper are sold, so that it should go well. Moving on to county council report, basically, we haven't had time to digest what the meetings in September did for us yet. So moving on to the clerk's department for department update. Is there questions from the report? Brock?
I'm curious about the winter parking question you raised. I don't know how to place the question. I'm not sure what the problem is and what the solutions are.
Do you want to go over Kathy or you?
What's the question?
I'm not sure. There's a problem indicated here that there are apartments or properties that don't have parking with them. It's a problem at the time. And people, I guess, are using the municipal parking lots, which creates other problems. So are there solutions to this? Are there ways that we can get around it, or where do we stand?
Sure.
It is a common issue for Main Street apartments that they do struggle with parking, and I've seen that in other municipalities as well. We can perhaps put it on the senior management team agenda and speak to the director about it. I have had a business owner in Wyndham approach me because he was familiar with something that was done in Teeswater with a municipal parking lot where they actually rented spaces to a building. There are some guidelines around that. Vehicles have to be out at a certain time every day to be able to do snow clearing. But he was approaching, wondering if that was a possible solution. I don't know, whether that's an available option or not, but it's something we can discuss as staff. But it's not an uncommon issue with Main Street buildings that there just isn't enough parking to accommodate the apartments upstairs.
This is sort of a holdover from years gone by, that my understanding, west of what had been Middleton's, had been purchased by 3 businesses on Main Street that had apartments. And the town approached them about paving it, and so that they turned the ownership of what they had paid for to have for parking over to the municipality. And so that, yes, it's municipal parking. And I think, Kelly, tell me if I'm wrong, but over by the car wash, that some of them were moving the cars, or the vehicles, it wasn't just cars, some were pickups over there, while the public parking lot could be cleaned out. And there was moving back and forth that happened to a small extent last year. But I'm not sure whether you knew where the vehicles went when they went out of the public parking lot.
No. The only time that it actually comes to our attention is when we go to clean the parking lot, we can't clean it.
Yeah.
Because they parked overnight. So last year, the CDO had a few of them removed just to even know that there's no alternative parking. And I think that's where this is coming from now. It's the owner of the apartment wants to find out where it can understand its park. So sometimes you have to generate a little bit of that in order to find out how you can resolve the problem. You're probably right, Neil, with
That was the
moving
move.
that's going on, yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll leave it for people to work with you to try and see if there is a solution. Okay, thank you.
Another question.
Brock?
I was wondering, under health and safety, what's behind the need to update the policy and procedures? Are there particular issues that are changing, or what's behind that?
I will maybe let speak and let Richard speak to that. This is our health and safety guru.
Yes. So we had a call a while back from the Ministry of Labor individual, and because we operate a multi-site joint health and safety committee, they wanted to review our terms of reference, and they so I sent those in, and there was a number of suggestions that they made. So we're updating that as well. At the same time, there were some concerns raised at a meeting about a policy for working alone, and we didn't have one. And so in looking at that, there was a number of, we asked some other municipalities to provide us with some of their policy samples, and we found that there was a number that we could incorporate into ours. So we're just kind of reworking that and trying to improve ours as well.
That's good. Okay. Thanks very much.
Anything else, or do you need a motion and a seconder? Trevor moves?
Yep.
Seconds? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to the finance department. Any questions? Trevor?
The only question I have is on page 2, Alpine Tree Service. Works tree cutting, $7,751. That tree, like, whereabouts is that? Or is that all through municipality?
That's revenue from municipality, and that's accumulated. He doesn't send in a bill when he cuts one tree down.
So we have no idea how long, like, is that like from this year, or is it
That was from
like
starting.
starting in January? Okay.
Any other questions?
Sorry. Just a follow-up to, what would be the reasoning for it, for the tree cutting? Is it hydro lines, all that stuff? Is it, what would be the reasoning for it?
It's a couple of different reasons. After a rainstorm, we have trees that need to be taken down. And if they're on our property, we take them down. We have a tree program that runs through Pat's department as well, and we offer another tree to be planted, but we recommend that we plant it on their own property, not on ours.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
I'm just going to add that some of that bill is also parks, which would be trees that are anywhere from the trailer park to along the trail that are risks. So we had one tree that was down across the trail that needed to be taken down. So Kelly's department does all of it through the contractor, and then we reimburse his department. So it's a number of things on that one bill.
Bill,
I'll move to accept.
you're moving the expense bills and accounts. And I just second. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And the Township of North Huron endorse the application submission in regard to a small communities fund application for the Edward Street project further to resolution M522 of 15, passed by council the 21st of September. Move for that.
I would move that, but I have a question as well.
Move second. Bill seconds. Go ahead.
I'm wondering, do we have a fallback position if we don't get that small communities fund grant or just go through the project or?
Well, it would be the same as, it would come up through budget deliberation time, the same as any other project. And as you know, we've already put the project off once because of the costs relating to the tender prices. So again, it would be, and will be reviewed whether we get the grant or not get the grant at budget time.
Yeah, just want to find out if there's anything new. Thanks.
Bill, my understanding is too, is we won't get final acceptance till January or February, so we really won't know when we start budgets, whether we're gonna get funded. So I guess what do we do? Should we put this in for funding and hope for the fallback to get the project approved? So we're gonna have to throw 800,000 in the budget.
Well,
How do you want to budget?
if you don't apply for it, you definitely aren't getting it. If we apply for it, we may be able to do it.
So the question, how do we approach it? We put the 800,000 in the budget and hope we get it, and then we've got 800,000. No, actually, what is the funding percentage of this one again? 67%?
2/3.
Two-thirds, 67%.
Asking for 2/3.
This is something
We ask for the grant money, and then we either can move forward on Plan B, or we can't move forward on Plan B if we don't get it. That'll be something that'll be probably well into the budget process before we can actually make that decision.
This one, if I'm not mistaken, from what Kevin said before, they've got to do this one. With more through Don's, so it's that bad. It's got to be done.
Yeah, like there's just a number of factors in the street that there's sanitary sewers, storm sewers, and road surface. Plus, it's fairly heavily traveled street, pedestrian wise, and sidewalks can be updated a bit too. So.
Sure.
Because it's a water, sewer, and road project combined, some of it would be coming from those water and sewer reserves, and then we have to look at how we can fund the roads portion through taxation or whether there's available reserve as well. So I think we need to look at it in the context of what our capital plan is overall for 2016.
Right.
I'll make the motion. We have to please. What do we have to do? We have cut the motion. Yeah, we don't just do it. Okay, we just gotta vote. Okay, sorry.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to recreation and facilities. Is there questions on that report? Trevor.
My only question would be in response to the Goliath and Wind Facilities managers saying it's too early. When won't it be too early to receive a financial impact to the Simcoe refrigeration?
Sure. So we signed with them right at the end of our ice season last year. So we really haven't run an ice season. We've had 2 startups, and that's it so far with them. So really, until I believe we've run a full ice season, at least past the mid-season, would we have any indication?
For the middle of next year.
Yeah, and maybe even after March, once they do the closing. We really need to run a full ice season to indicate whether we've had an advantage with the new method.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. James.
In that ice time that we're losing in Blythe, is there any way that we can talk to the Huron Minor Sports to move some of their ice? Because we have a lot of teams that's going to Belmore and not using their own facilities because they can't find ice time here to do it. If we have space in Blythe, why are not some of these teams going to Blythe to use up some of that ice time? I don't know if you can answer that or not, Pat.
How long do you have? It's a complicated answer, but the truth of it is that there are some hours that Wingham Minor Hockey is using in Belmore. And it's always a challenge because we do have ice available. It's just not necessarily at the time they want to come. So they have the opportunity to go to another facility and have it at a time that they would like to use it. Everybody would like the same core hours, 6 to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, and the best hours on Saturday and Sunday. So of course, we've been working very closely with minor hockey here in Wingham to increase their ice usage. And in fact, it is up by, I think, an hour and a half from last year. We've been able to find them some more windows of ice. In Blythe, it was unfortunate when the requisitions came in. And then after the requisition came in for the skating club, that they then called and canceled a further 3 hours. And my understanding is Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey has reduced their ice usage both in Brussels and in the Blythe facility to save money and just reflect their needs. We're going to do everything we can to try to rent more ice through the season, but the challenge is you really need to know that well in advance to sell it. So we are going to take the shortfall this year and then work with the groups in Blythe to try to increase usage overall. And I think we're going to have to maybe even open it up to another user and try to find one. But it's very challenging. An email has been circulating today from all of the arenas in our area that belong to our networking group. And a number of arenas have found the same thing this year, that groups have cut back. And so everyone's sharing who's lost ice, what's going on, trying to drill down to what's going on. And we're not unique, I guess is what I want to share. But I can't really force Wingham to go to use Blythe's ice in the same way that I can't force Blythe to come here in Wingham to use the Wingham ice. It's their choice where they want to buy their ice.
And I don't know, this will be hard to answer, but what's causing this? Are they just not have as many games, or are they not having as many practices, or is there not as many teams, or is there not as many kids playing hockey?
It's a number of things. Whether you're talking about hockey, broomball, or figure skating, there's fewer children taking part. Their schools are amalgamating for a reason, and there are fewer kids to draw upon. So it's happening through all the minor hockey. If you remember, 3 years ago, Blythe and Brussels amalgamated because they couldn't sustain themselves on their own, and I think they're going to see more and more of that. There's more ice than there are players now in hockey, figure skating, broomball, and everything. And so it's definitely a challenge for each arena to sustain itself and its ice usage. It is fewer kids, and I think that the figure skating clubs are also feeling this pinch. They've cut back in their ice usage both in Blythe and in Brussels. And Wingham, they were supposed to run a spring school in September and called us 2 weeks prior to that and canceled all their ice in September because they could not have enough registrants. So everybody's feeling the pinch, and we're here to support these groups the best way we can. But I'm finished having children. I'm not having any more to help. But the problem, maybe you too, eh? Yeah, so it's a symptom of a bigger problem, I guess you could say.
Yeah, okay. There's just not as many.
As many teams, as many players, as many children to draw upon. Yep.
Yeah, so I have a comment too. Like, as a member of the WAA, we have the same issue. We are the same issue that all the municipalities are having for the amalgamation, because it's per team. Revenue is done by per team. So as amalgamation happens, the teams go down and the revenue goes down as well. The concern I think we have with ice is that, you know, registration happens for hockey in May, but they really don't finalize anything till long into September. So they're booking ice times when the schedule comes out, and that could have drastically changed when their actual registration is finalized. So it's the old chicken and the egg. You can block it out thinking they're going to have the same, but they're probably not based on population. And there's a lot more sports now. There's a lot more sports that are available to kids in the summertime and in the wintertime that we wouldn't have when I was a kid. We played hockey. That was it. You played hockey, you played baseball. That was it. Now there's golf, karate, lacrosse, you name it. There's a whole bunch of variables here. And we're not, like Pat said, we're not unique. It's the WA's feeling the same pinch that that the municipalities are having with their programs too.
And maybe cheaper sports too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
If I could provide a verbal update, I guess relating to the fundraising for the 1419 for the Memorial Hall renovation. I attended a meeting today with Deb Schuldeis and Gil from the Black Festival with the Department of Heritage in Toronto to talk about a cultural spaces grant for that facility renovation. It was a very productive meeting. I really wish that all funding programs were run that way. It's a relatively low intake program, so they're actually able to assign you a person who leads you through the application. Gil and Deb have been working on a first draft of the application, and he provided feedback on that, gave them some pointers that could strengthen our case. We went through the budget sort of line by line and looking at which pieces of the project would be eligible under the program and which wouldn't. And so it was a very positive meeting, and we probably won't know whether we're successful in the grant until May. There's a federal election in the middle of that, so it's a bit challenging for the timelines for moving the project forward. So we're going to have to figure out some strategies around that. Although they did say that they communicate with us through the process, and if there are any showstoppers where they think we're going to be booted out of the process, we'll know. So the longer you stay in the program, in the process, and they're asking you for feedback as it goes through the different levels of review, the better you know your chances are. So we could have a pretty good idea early in the year whether we're still in the running and going to be successful. So I just thought I'd let you know that it was a very positive meeting, and it's a $1 million ask, and they didn't blink at that sort of funding level. So very positive, worthwhile trip.
I was just going to mention I have the two motions here, but I also, in my report, there are two summary pieces of information for items that are coming later in the agenda under correspondence. So if there's any questions about any of that, otherwise, it's my report.
Bill, I have a question on part D, the church dinner and swim. How many lifeguards do we have to put into that pool now for a swim?
It's my understanding that it's 25 and under, 2 guards, and then once the 26th swimmer enters the pool, the 3rd guard must be there. That's the number I'm telling you. I can confirm that for you, but I'm pretty sure that's what happens when we organize a birthday party, for example. 2 guards come with that price. If you're going to have more than 25 swimmers, they have to pay the additional cost for another guard.
Okay. That's close. That's all right. Thank you.
I was just going to add that because these events like public swims and this, we don't know how many are coming. We always have to plan for the 3rd guard.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand. I think I was a part of this event last year, and as much as I love the fact that promoting using the businesses, I just struggle with how does that get coordinated? How do we ensure that with the sponsorship of the businesses or community groups for free sponsored swim, how do we ensure that this particular request is in there? I think it's valuable because, in my opinion, there is a lot of, in Huron County, there is a lot of less fortunate people that potentially could live in our municipality. And, as we provide a lot of things, a lot of asks, and we give them yes based on, and they're not less fortunate. So I guess my question is that I want to ensure, how do we ensure that if we're not going to approve this donation, that it is within the other community asks, like so that it is free to them? Like I would not want, in my opinion, this issue with dinner, and they have the ability to go to the pool, but then they have to pay for it, especially for less fortunate people. So am I missing something in that?
The swim on the day of the event is in addition to our schedule. So it is not a swim that would be taking place unless this group rents the pool and offers this free swim as part of the lunch. So I was trying to point out that during the year, there are other opportunities where both North Huron, through the Family Funapalooza Day, and also our 11 sponsored swims, where people have an opportunity to come swimming for free. And because this event is happening on, I'm trying to remember the date here. Yes, that is actually before, I think it's 4 or 5 swims that will be happening in December that are free. And my suggestion was that rather than putting on another free swim, that we circulate a flyer during the lunch to mention to these participants of the lunch that we have a number of free swims coming up in December. Please come out and enjoy them. It's absolutely up to council what you choose to do. My recommendation was just looking at it as a business case and understanding how many had participated in the swim last year versus the other ones which are publicized through our Rec and Leisure Guide, and we receive up to 100 swimmers with those. But of course, it's up to council if they would like to donate towards this event and provide the pool.
James.
So if there's, how many kids would be into that, for that swim that night of the luncheon?
Last year, they had 17 swimmers attend the swim. I'm not sure how many would come this year.
So you have 2 lifeguards for sure.
We would have to always put a third on because you can't guess how many will attend. So sometimes that third guard is sent home after a time when we realize they're not required, or they're given another duty to do in the facility.
So this is a 1 hour swim, 2 hour swim. I'm just thinking of what.
Yep, I believe that this is a request. I'd have to go back to the letter, but I believe
It's a request.
2 hours, for 2 hours swim. And from 10 a.m. to noon, which is not a normal public swim time, as far as I can. I pull up the schedule to be sure, and the cost to offer it as a free swim is the $241.05, which is, if you were to rent the pool for 2 hours, that's your cost. Yeah, our regular swim is only 1 to 3. And it's not free on that day.
Bill.
What time is their lunch? Is that when?
12 till 2, I think, 12 till 4 or something like that. It's like a
4,
4
12 till 2:30, couple hours last year.
And there is a public swim on that day from 1 till 3?
I'm just checking that to confirm right now. I'm just pulling that up here. So what day, this is on, which is Saturday? If you want to ask another question, I'll get this pulled up. Slow down. The time it's taking is Richard's call.
Put your foot after the hose, Richard.
You can't blame him now, he's here.
Oh, sorry, that's right, he's been over there this night. Just give it a moment, it's loading. And we'll have a Rec and Leisure Guide.
So while it's loading, just to be sure, we have an alternative possibility that instead of giving them 2 hours of free time prior to their lunch, we could give them during their lunchtime, we could give them tickets for the public swim. And that would, then we don't have to worry about numbers or quantities. It's really not going to be a huge burden on us.
So on Saturdays, at that time, there is not a public swim from 1 to 3. But that is another, thank you. That is another alternative that I hadn't considered, is simply giving out a swim pass that's good for the rest of the year, the rest of the season, to anybody who participates. And then they could come at any time that's convenient for them. That is another opportunity for council to consider. So there are free swims on December 22nd, 27th, 28th, 29th, January 3rd are all sponsored swims that are free. And then there's our regular schedule from 1 to 3 on Sundays for swims. And then in January, the Saturday swim is added. So we can give out passes.
What is the cost of a swim ticket or public swim? How much? Talk again. Doesn't
Yep,
have
they
to be exact.
Nope, they just changed, so I don't want to misquote it. So the aquatic center for children 5 to 0 or 5 and under is free. Youth 6 to 17 is $4. An adult 18 and over is $5, or a family can come for $12 for a maximum of 6 people.
So does anybody want to make a recommendation as to how we proceed?
On that particular item, or do we wait till today? Because it comes up anyway, doesn't it?
It's under council correspondence.
It is under correspondence, so you can,
Whichever
the
one.
motion is there under correspondence.
I'd make a motion then that we don't give them the free time, but that we give them passes, appropriate swim passes, for free to whatever quantity we figure would be appropriate for, 20 based on last year, as opposed to giving them 2 hours of free swim time. More cost effective.
Cleveland?
I'll second, but I think you can't put a number on it. Like, it has to be whoever is there is provided a swim pass for that day. Like, whatever it means. If there's 50 there, then we give 50. If there's 2 there, we give them 2. I think it has to be, the intent of the request is for that anybody who wants to have it has a free time.
Yeah.
But are you giving family passes or individual passes? Because if you give out 100 family passes at $12 a family, that's $1,200. You might as well give them 2 hours of consuming.
How many attendees do we know? What
Last year, there was 230 people that came.
230 people that came to the
for
meeting.
dinner.
So, offer them.
We track when we give away free swims, what the intake is. So if they're numbered passes, so when one is used, we would be able to report out afterwards how many were, if we gave out 200, maybe only 15 would actually be used. I would also suggest that we put a deadline usage on those so that they're used maybe by the end of January. So they're not unlimited. Yeah.
So family passes, those would be offered in family.
I think we would just arm them with whatever's appropriate for the group. If it's a family that comes in, a family pass. If an individual, a senior comes in, then here's a senior's pass.
Okay.
Okay.
No worries. Okay.
Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion? Carried. And the investigative report received for information purposes, Trevor and Yolanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And the 2A of the report is that Yeah. Okay. And the Council of North Huron permit 1419-8 to negotiate 20-year naming rights for the lower hall, courtyards, kitchen, and south lobby as part of the fundraising campaign for the renovations of the Blythe Memorial Community Hall. With the understanding that council will have an opportunity to review and approve the final names. Trevor and Yolanda? Question, Bill?
Question. Has this been passed by the Blythe Festival Board for their approval? Like, have they given this their blessing?
It's not really up to them.
It's not, but
It's my understanding that the Legion, the Legion Auxiliary, the Blythe Festival have all been asked if they're on board with this. It's ultimately council's building and it's your choice to make this decision, but it's my understanding that there's no objection to this request from any of those groups.
So in other words, there hasn't been anything in writing coming back saying that those groups have no objection to this program. Like they haven't been asked to.
So 1419, the renovation committee has representation from all of those groups, and they are all aware that this is what's being requested, and nobody has objected. And letters went out to the Ladies Legion Auxiliary and the Legion. That's what 1419 shared with us, and nothing came back objecting to this. They were asked to comment if they objected to any of those renaming opportunities.
I would feel more comfortable if I actually saw a response back from the Blythe Festival Board. And so I'm just saying, no, they're in agreement with me. I don't want to see something down the road where they go and sell a name to somebody we agree with and get a great outcry.
Trevor?
So in the motion states that we have the right to refuse whatever. We have the authority approval, final approval. Blythe Festival Theater, whoever is the tenants of that building, it's still a municipality building. So regardless, they could come and go. We have no idea. We never want them to go, but that is their right. But we have the option to approve it. So if we don't think it's right to have that name on there, it's our responsibility to not have that name on there. Regardless of whether the festival agrees or doesn't agree with it, we ultimately have the last say.
Brock?
I agree with Trevor. I don't think we need their permission.
Well,
It's naming.
the way I look at it is these different areas are all supplementary to the actual theater space, so that that it's something that I think council has every right to proceed with, especially with the last line that council will have final approval. Pat?
Just to clarify, just because I've been in multiple meetings about all of this stuff, and so there has been objections to changing the name of the Baton's Art Gallery. So that's an example where that came back as nobody really wanted that to see that change. That has been branded, et cetera, et cetera. So that is not on the list. So all of these things have been vetted by the different committees and the different groups. The intent of this motion is to allow 1419 to go out and negotiate in good faith. That if they come back with a name that we consider appropriate, that we would grant this naming. Why we have final say is we do not want it to have alcohol or tobacco or a marijuana grow plant or something like that necessarily. Well, maybe not, but that's why you have final say on the name. But the idea is that we want to allow 1419, who's trying to fundraise all of this money, the opportunity to go out and negotiate, approach corporate or private sponsors to name these spaces, and it will cost them a significant fund to have their name on that space. And but ultimately, this is council's building, but I don't think that those 4 spaces will have any objection from the Blythe Festival.
Just
Yeah.
take Rob first.
I just wonder if it wouldn't be wise to have a clause in those agreements that it could be withdrawn under certain circumstances. That is, if the sponsor did something really outlandish and harmful or whatever, that there be an opportunity to remove their name from the facility.
Yeah, my question really was, and I'm not specifically the blind person, but to any of those involved groups, just that we know we're not gonna run into a painting gallery situation where all of a sudden, no, you're not gonna change it. We don't want it named. So, I mean, as long as everyone feels that that's been done and that there are no, there's always pitfalls, but that we cover as many bases as possible, that's fine. But I just, like I said, just want to make sure we're not going to walk into a big gallery situation in 6 months.
No, and it was very clear that the name of the building and of the theater would never change. Memorial Hall is Memorial Hall. And, yeah, so I've, all of the meetings I've attended, the Live Festival has not. And there's a board member on the renovation committee and he's not objecting. And there's board members on 1419 board as well, and they're aware of this ask.
All in favor of that? All in favor? Carried.
Brock's question is, we should have some certainty that the morality clause be part of it, so that should really be part of the motion, shouldn't it?
I can handle that at the administrative level, or if you want it added to the motion, that can be done. An appropriate morality clause be included in the naming.
I think we could do that if we remember it, do it at the time when those names come back. As part of the- Wine Festival, the DIA Festival arrangements.
Okay. The Lingham VIA Second Annual Festival of Lanterns and council resolution that council of the Township of North Huron authorized the Recreation Department to donate swim passes and or 1 month adult complete membership to the North Huron West West Community Center for one of the adult category prizes at the discretion of the Director of Recreation for the Lingham VIA Second Annual Festival of Lanterns, October 30th, 2015. Trevor, Miranda, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Pat. Moving to Public Works. Questions or comments? Right.
Kelly, the survey on Zion Road, does that mean what survey are we doing? Yeah, we surveyed the road, now we know what belongs to us. So we want to widen the road. We want to do some work, yeah. Let's just put property so that we don't get back to the road line.
Just one question. That within a quarter of a mile of the end of Zion Road, I know when the county was filling up the county road, they hauled for over a week to get back to where they started filling. Will we be doing test holes as to whether there's a bottom in that swamp at the location?
We're just taking the road from 16 feet to maybe 20. Like we're widening the road out because we've had some concerns with school buses going off the road.
Not questioning the need for it. It's whether we need to possibly map
That'll be something.
that just my experience in county hall. I'm not sure whether you were on the county that time, but I think it was 6 days to get back to where they started, just off the end of the west end. There's parts of that swamp seem almost bottomless. So please, it's just check that out. And that even if you have to wait till spring to do it, because the gravel may not set solid, and it might be better to wait till spring if you see that you may run into problems. Thank you. Trevor.
Kelly, I'm going to ask you to non-legalize the letter from Burnside, please. What is that letter from Burnside telling me as a non-technical person? What is it trying to get towards me?
What's it trying to say?
Yeah, what is it trying to say?
Actually, it's a follow-up to Ian, who was we just got a follow-up letter from Ian, which is put into the report. From her letter to the now Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, they changed their name, right? Just says that what Joy has in the plan has satisfied the ministry, so we will go ahead with some extra testing. We have to decommission a couple of wells and also put in 2 more wells. So I don't know if that's an answer.
That's the answer that I was hoping to get of the whatever this was trying to tell me, because I'm not obviously a technical person, so there's lots of abbreviations in here that I have no idea what it's trying to tell me. So just telling me that there's more samples to be done and we're decommissioning some wells, that's enough of the.
And we're also going to drill a couple more wells.
That's okay. As long as it understands, I'm happy that we're meeting the ministry's guidelines and what we need to do. I just need them to be a little more clear on what they're trying to tell me.
Well, we're on that.
Yep.
There is a cost which wasn't budgeted, like I said in the report. So we're going to, talking with Joy today, we're going to try and put the drilling of the new wells and the decommissioning of the old wells off into 2016. Because we do have some room in our budget, but we don't think it's going to be enough.
James.
In regards to the dumping of some of the dumpsters, are we dumping all recycled dumpsters on Tuesdays and Fridays every single day?
Well, as you remember, this has been a contentious issue, and we did budget for the amount of dumps for the year. We took back that, and it's not like I'm going to be over in my budget, but it seems to be going to alleviate a bit of the troubles that we've had out there. I got them to change both of the times on the Tuesday and on the Friday, which may have been the way to go. But I'm going to have a report to do with recycling and curbside collection. I think it would be interesting.
But you're still with the same number of.
I never changed the bins. The
I
bins are all
realize that, yeah. Okay.
It's just
But
the dumping frequency. It's not.
Okay, so this should eliminate, you think, some of the problem. Maybe, sure. It's too fast. Okay.
Okay, moving for information.
Yes.
James seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Kelly. Unless you have something else.
No.
Okay. Moving to 6.7, the utility department, and 6.7.1 is the standpipe. So, Don?
Yes, so I didn't have a report prepared for you here. We're still gathering information to, still looking for recommendations for that standpipe yet. So it's kind of turned out to be a fairly complicated thing. So Karen and I will work up together on the report for next council.
So,
No, not at this point. We do have a written report from an engineer, but we need to do a bit of work before we come forward with the recommendations.
Okay, that sounds fine. Moving to 6.8, Fire Department of North Huron.
Is there, no, so there is no report, so that should be recorded if we want to see stuff from there.
Okay, 6.9, you have the floor, Shane.
Yes, I was so lonely at the end of the agenda all by myself, so I moved back up to the front with the rest of the team. I feel better. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. We have Connie here this evening to make a presentation on the progress to date on the Economic Development Strategic Plan. We are still continuing to struggle with the tight timelines on that project. It's proving to be more challenging every meeting we go to and trying to schedule the necessary focus groups and pull all of the parties to the table to be able to really feed the plan at the end of the day. I'd like to have a conversation with the county CAO to see what her expectations are at the end of the process. Does she want a fully completed plan from each municipality that's, you know, grammar checked and tied up with a nice little bow and approved by councils? Or are we really just looking to identify some of the major priorities and answer the questions as you see that she brought forward in the letter to council here, really wanting to delve into what the county's role is going to be in economic development in the future, and is there any activities that we want to see the county stop or start doing? Because I think it is going to be somewhat challenging to get everything wrapped up with a nice little bow in the timelines that we have, but we're going to work diligently to do the best we can. I wanted to point out a correction that I have. So we have scheduled a joint council meeting with Morris Turnberry to discuss the industrial land strategy on October 21st at 9 p.m. The ESTC is not available, so we're looking to relocate that to the Wingham Knights of Columbus Hall. So the motion is going to be changed to reschedule and relocate that meeting to that venue, and we're really going to be speaking about the servicing piece and phasing the servicing of that industrial land as we go forward. So we will send a reminder out to council closer to the date, 7 p.m. October 21st. I also want to point out that Don's last day with us is October 9th, which is this Friday, and we're all sadly going to miss him after he's gone. He's just a wonderful addition to our senior management team, and we really enjoy working with him, so it is definitely going to be a big loss, but I wanted to thank him for all of his hard work that he's done for us over the years. He's really worked through some challenging times. When we brought the operations of the system in-house, I believe it was back in 2008, Don really helped us to get up on our feet and running that system. Worked our way through the wonderful drinking water quality management standard as it came down, and that was just a very onerous project. And so I do want to thank you for all of your hard work and tell you that you're going to be greatly missed. And so that's really all I have to highlight in that report. So my recommendation there, really that needs to be passed, is just the date of the meeting and to accept my report.
To accept the report, Yolanda and Trevor, all in favor? Carried. And approve a joint council meeting with the Township Municipality of Morris Turnberry on October 21st, 2015 at 7 p.m. at Knights of Columbus. James and Ray, all in favor? Carried.
So So my next report is just a wrap up of the first service review report that council directed the staff to prepare. That was one of the top priorities that you identified in your post-budget brainstorming session, cross-border services. So as you know, we have passed our cross-border servicing policy and made great strides in that area. But one of the other things that we recognized as part of our cross-border services is many of the other services that North Huron provides across our borders, be it recreation, cemeteries, just a full range of services and strategies that we could use to get people to, our neighbors to contribute to those services, either through non-resident user fees. We've managed to incorporate that into our cross-border servicing policy for water and sewer, where we can have that conversation with our neighbors, and through that process, we have actually increased some of our recreation grants from Morris Turnberry as a result. So I consider that a big success. And I think the next step of it is the shared services. So as many of council attended the shared services session that was facilitated by the county, my first comment is that I think a lot of the items that were identified as now items didn't have a lot of meat on their bones, and perhaps council would like to weigh in on that as well. But I think that was the nature of it, because they wanted to identify items that didn't require a lot of resources or budget approval to begin working on immediately. I think there are some things on the later list that are going to be more opportunity to really see perhaps some efficiencies and cost savings. But they might not be appropriate for the wider group of 9 municipalities to do together. So I think we will see perhaps some smaller conversations among our neighbors about services that we can share to start trying to find efficiencies as our provincial funding continues to decrease, and we need to find new ways of providing service at a more economical cost. So I'm suggesting that we keep our cross-border committee together to be able to work on any of those opportunities that may arise as a result of the shared service facilitation. And then that committee would bring those discussions back to council for approval.
Well, I'll make one comment. I think there's now, there's soon, and then later. Because there's a number of things that within the next 3 or 4 months that I think we should be discussing. So I would call them soon rather than later. Do I have a motion for the, what's printed out? Yolanda? Ray? Any discussion? All in favor?
Connie can go now as
I just have a very, very quick update here. It was actually put together by OMAFRA and the county. It's just to go to all councils through the strategic economic development strategic planning process, just to keep everybody updated on where we are in the process and what our next steps are. So this will just take a few minutes, actually. This is the process overview. As you can see, we have done 2 training sessions already as a train the trainer on August 26th and on September 16th. And actually then like I say, OMAFRA put this together, so that's their little important arrow there for the CED 101 for municipal councillors. And then we have a couple of other training sessions coming up, one actually on Wednesday. So if you don't really understand how the process is working, our core team actually
attends a training session. So we went to the vision and environmental scan. We went back and we met with our committee. We did our homework with OMAFRA. And then we went back to the second session. We did collecting and analyzing data, which was tons of fun. And then again, we took that back to our training session, or to our committee. And that's how we're completing this plan as we move forward. So as I say, we are getting ready to go to our third training session on October 7th in 2 days on performance measures and goal setting. So this is a draft vision statement, and I must stress that this is just a draft that North Huron had come up with their strategic planning committee. This is certainly, we can look at this throughout the process and probably at the end of the process to change it, make it better, whatever. But this is, like I said, after our first training session, we had 3 weeks to get back our draft vision statement, to meet with our committee and get our draft vision statement back to OMAFRA. So this is our kind of our working vision statement for our economic development strategic plan. So I'm talking about the strategic planning committee. I cannot stress enough, I think we have some wonderful, wonderful people at the table. We have tried to pull in as many people from as many sectors and organizations as possible. This planning committee probably will grow too over the next couple of months as we identify people that we need to talk to and pull to the table. But I like to say that I've just put them up there. I'm not going to read through it, but you can see that they have really come from a wide range of sectors in our municipality. Some successes, I actually, OMAFRA had some challenges slide in there. I took that right out because we can overcome any challenges here in North Huron. Some successes that were identified, and this is by all the core teams throughout the county. Everybody's finding that there is good turnout for strategic planning. Our committee members, like I say, are highly, they're just highly knowledgeable, committed to the process. It seems to be amazing when you put forward the fact that we are one municipality working in concert with the other 8 lower tier municipalities and the county itself to create economic development plans that avoid duplication, identify priorities and partnerships. People are engaged instantly and they really, really want to be a part of that. So that's very, very exciting. Excellent ideas put forward, Sphere for Change, learning how important strategic planning is. Core team key learnings, again, not really going to go through there. Point 3 is probably the most important, that stats are fun. We have engaged in pulling up some stats, not only from Stats Canada, from Industry Canada as well. So we're going to have economic development plans that are not based on opinion. They're actually going to be based on the data, and it's very, very interesting. Sometimes the data is probably a little bit contrary to what we might think our local knowledge would be, but certainly having the statistics behind this will help us create a really, really a great plan. We're learning that the 10 municipal partners have a lot in common, but we are engaging in this process individually because our 10 municipal partners are also very, very unique. And we want to make sure that that uniqueness is identified in the plans as we move forward. Our homework this session is to talk to community stakeholders and confirm the economic statistics. And we did that, and we had a little bit of fun with that at our strategic planning session last Monday, a week ago. We are identifying collaborations, focus groups, people that we want to talk to, and that list is absolutely exhaustive. We had some really, really great ideas come forward at our strategic planning session on Monday, and what we have decided to do is start the process with a survey monkey. We identified the questions that we wanted to ask our focus groups. We identified our focus groups, identified who we wanted to talk to as representatives of those focus groups. We're sending out a survey monkey so they can kind of get started on the questions that are going out to all of the industries and groups that we are talking to. And then we are going to follow up with some one-on-one focus groups meetings, kind of drill down and get a little bit more information that is probably a little bit more industry specific. So
Again, OMAFRA, put that little arrow in there. It is now passed for those of you that have seen D101. And that's it.
Brock,
I found the sessions that we had quite interesting, but I'm a little bit concerned that things aren't coalescing. I don't see us moving into a stage where I can really see that we've made progress. And I'm hoping that things will start to come together before too long. I think the vision statement to me is looser and less dynamic than I would like to see it. And I would like to, we had a economic development 101 session, which I thought was not very helpful in terms of learning about the strategic planning process. There's a lot of talk, a lot of manipulation and list making and so on, but it didn't lead to anything. If I'd never heard of economic development before, I think I would really be wondering what it was all about. And I don't feel we made much progress in that regard. So I hate to be a downer on this, but it is so important, and I'd like to consider whether we're on the right track or whether we need to take a different tack.
Sharon?
I think some of that is the challenging timelines that we have in being able to meet as a core team, to plan out the strategic planning sessions and then get all of that information available. And then, if we want to pull in focus groups to really start drilling down into some of the areas, the timelines are just so challenging that it's almost impossible to do that. And that's what we're really struggling with. One of the things that, was the homework this time also was to pull some of our current existing documents, like our BR&E reports. I feel we should be talking to the group about our industrial land strategy, the employment land strategy for the county, but we really haven't had an opportunity to do that. So, because of my meeting schedule, I wasn't even able to attend the last core team planning session. So we're really, really struggling around the busy time of year and trying to fit all of this in. So I think we can take some of that feedback as a core team and decide, how we're going to schedule some of these focus group sessions to be able to start drilling down into creating an action plan, finding out where our opportunities are, and creating an action plan. One of the things that we also identified at our last meeting, you may recall, is that when they were talking about key stakeholders and who they were in important businesses in North Huron, the lines are sort of gray as to what are Morris Turnberry businesses and what are Wingham businesses. And so I was talking to Nancy McGee, the administrator for Morris Turnberry, on Friday, and they're finding the same challenge. Rather than doing focus groups, they've gone out and individually interviewed some businesses that have located here in the last 5 years. So we talked about opportunities where we can maybe share the data that we've collected and collaborating together our core teams. So we're going to have our 2 core teams meet following the core team training on Wednesday, just to talk about opportunities that we would have maybe to share some work and work together on some things. So your points are well taken, because we're sort of feeling that scramble as well, but hopefully we can pull it all together and get where we need to go.
Yeah, and I think it ultimately boils down to, I think this was a concern when O'Mafra and they were here, is all the people in this core team, they have they have day-to-day jobs that they have to be supportive of that job too. So it's to find everybody to have a synced calendar is not an easy task to do. And when you have a turnaround timeline like you do, it even makes it even a harder struggle. So, I was skeptical at the time when they provided the timeline, and I still am skeptical because of the demands that we all put on our businesses and our leaders of those businesses. Then those are the key people at the table. So I think that's going to be the real challenge, and I think that's where we're all finding that right now.
May I ask, what did you think of the Community Economic Development 101? That I have some comments that I'd like to make after you.
Sure. I enjoyed it. I found the first half maybe a little bit more useful and helpful. And I was hoping to walk away with some tangible strategies to go forward, and I didn't find it really was any. There was just a lot of information that I was hoping that we would be able to walk away with some good strategies to implement. And I didn't get that, and like Brock said, didn't find it overly useful. And could have maybe been at work as opposed to there.
That in attending that, in the past 6 or 7 years, that I have been at a number of OMAFRA economic development planning, and to me, when we're so busy at the other part, that it was time that could have been spent better. The one guy, Bill Vanstone, he's a person that for Colburn Township was in 20 years ago, and he said, gosh, just seems like an update on the old presentation that happened 20 years ago. And that unfortunately, OMAFRA is trying to find where their role is, and I think they're actually lost, because they used to provide information to agriculture. The unfortunate thing, they are behind in their information on agriculture because of the information technology that we have nowadays. The land grant colleges in the States are so much ahead of government. So, Brock?
And think back to the first project that I was ever involved with on strategic planning. I was working for a department in Metro Toronto, and it's a large department. And so they had hired a gentleman from Eastern Ontario, and he started out the session with us giving an overview of the strategic planning process. And it was, I'm sure there are other processes and there are other ways. He really gave quite a broad vision of where we were heading and what we were going to do. And that talk informed the whole process from then on. So we knew where we were going. We didn't know what the answers were, but we knew at least what the questions were. And it was a very engaging kind of process. And we ended up with, I thought, one of the best strategic plans that I've seen. And I don't get any of that. We're making lists, we're listing this and that, and maybe those lists will become useful at some point, I don't know. But it didn't seem to really coalesce into anything meaningful. And I think it seems to me that we're missing that upfront leadership kind of thing that sets the mold for what we're going to do. Sorry to be.
I think we may have to take that back as a core team and see how we can develop that. They're feeding us the materials, as we go. And we have pared some of it down because, frankly, there's a lot of stuff there that would have people snoozing probably about a half an hour into the meeting, and we don't want to do that either. So maybe that's something we can do as a core team, is to sit down and figure out how we're gonna drill down to where we need to, an actionable plan to go forward, and maybe we'll get a better sense of that when we see this next training on Wednesday, and let's certainly hope so, because it's the second last one.
The old expression, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
That's right.
The final activity that we did at the thing, at the 101 training, was to go through a list of different activities and events that are going on throughout your municipality. We were put into groups so that you weren't with someone from your same municipality. And that was interesting and helpful in learning all the different things that are going on. But it definitely just brought to light how unique our municipalities are. ACW is agriculture. They don't have really any urban center to work with. So then they're trying to understand what we're doing, and we're trying to understand how we can be effective and helpful for them. And I guess all that shared servicing things will come through maybe. But yeah, I would have liked to have been able to walk away with at least 3 things that I could say, okay, this is what we can do to make this work, and I didn't get that. And that was disappointing.
Okay, moving through council information, point 9. You are read and filed. Trevor and Ray, all in favor? Carried. Moving to correspondence. Trevor seconds. All in favor? Carried. Moving to bylaw or committee reports, the health and safety report. Anything? The North Shore Police Services Board did June 30th meeting. Any questions? Okay. Moving to 12 bylaws. Bylaw number 74, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign on behalf of council a contract with Emergency Response Services between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Quantum Murray LP. Introduced, read a first and second time. Ray and Brock, all in favor? Okay. Same bylaw, read a third and final time. Bill and James, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 75, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign on behalf of council an amendment to bylaw number 52, 2015, to include a donation request form cited as Schedule A. We had a first and second time. Yolanda and Trevor, all in favor? Carried. The same bylaw, read a third and final time. Brock and Trevor, all in favor? Carried. Council reports and inquiries, and big omission on my part in the Reeves report of former East Wallanash boy, Professor Wayne Caldwell, is acting Dean of OAC.
Really? That's in a way, that's a loss. To take him away from where he's been so helpful.
his passion is rural planning. And as it's been for probably the last 15 years, it's nice having a cell phone number if I need information. And a number of other people in the room also look at it as a fantastic resource that is always easy to get a good read from. Trevor.
I just want to make council and staff aware of a few things with the Building Bridges to a Future campaign. They have submitted an Aviva insurance grant. That's basically what it entitles is a voting about $100,000 grant, as well as the ability to get another $40,000 from Aviva brokers that represent Aviva. So the intent is that the voting, it's kind of like craft celebration tour, that kind of stuff, where they need to get votes in order to be on the selection process. So I will, we will be getting some information out to the municipality in some way to ensure that the municipality is aware of this, as well as the groups are also going to their municipal partners. So all the municipalities within the catchment area of that school and FMDL to let them know about their group and all that stuff and looking for requests. So I also wanted to give an update. Now the meeting was tonight, but there was an events meeting tonight at 7 o'clock at the Maitland River School. They are talking about having their on the agenda was a family Halloween dance at the Columbus Center. So there is some more events going to be planned, but that's the one they're really focusing on, obviously with Halloween 3 weeks or 4 weeks away. So I think they're really catching fire with support. So, but I have I'm optimistic that some of these grants will start to become fruition, and then they'll continue to move forward. If you haven't seen it, the playground at school, the one part of the playground equipment that they have got installed is an excellent start for a 3-year commitment that this group has maintained. So I'm glad to be a part of it and providing some support to them. So.
Brock.
I was just going to request Trevor to maybe give staff some direction from council. We were just put in a situation this week where that group on Building Bridges wanted some support for their grant, and it's a great opportunity. I guess what we're asking, I would like to have is a motion from council to allow the township staff to use our marketing resources to assist in the support. So whether it's our social media website or our flyer going out, if we want to get the community voting for this, we would like to have permission to it wouldn't cost us any additional resources. It would just be that we would also support this grant, which is not our grant, it is their grant, but it's for our community. I was just, if we could get that officially from council, that would alleviate going back and forth each time we want to do something and allow us to do it in a timely fashion.
Is that required immediately, or do you
No,
want to
it's something I get. I'm not sure what's the timing of the voting.
So I believe what I read is the voting is supposed to start tomorrow, today or tomorrow, I think it was.
Okay.
So it's something that they're going to get out there from the county. They had asked me about something to do with Connie and how her network can get out there, but I never promised her anything. I just said that we got it here, get some information to the public. If they request something, like as a counselor, I have no issues with that. I think it's only best that we're supporting them anyway, so why not provide them the network?
Do they have their own website?
So they have their own website. They have their own, their website is on the Avon Maitland District School Board because it is part of the foundation of the school board. They have their own Facebook page. They have their own Twitter account. If they have their own stuff, it's just the municipality has a lot more network than they do, and the catchment basin. So
If we could provide the links on our website and
retweet and things like that. Like I said, not to create a lot of work for us, but it would allow us to support them in some way.
I'll make that motion.
What exactly is that?
The motion is just to allow staff to utilize the marketing that we have in the municipality to support the Building Bridges campaign.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? Carried. Rob?
I have something. I'm really concerned about the Witches Walk. I think, in a way, North Huron has come off looking very bad in this situation, and I think it's not completely fair. There were a lot of issues that came up that caused communications to break down, and there's lots of blame to go around in terms of I've seen some of the correspondence that the group was notified about a lot of the things that had to be done ages ago, not on the 1st of October, but much before that. And I don't think our staff can be expected to know what every group in the whole municipality are, what stage they're at, or what their requirements are. They have to take some responsibility for preparing and asking questions and so on. And it's true they made a presentation here in November, but they were asked to, notified that they should get in touch with our fire prevention officer, and they didn't do that until the last minute. So there are a number of things. I don't wish to lay any particular blame on them, but I just wanted to be clear that it was not fault of our staff entirely. And I think probably our council should take a little bit of responsibility for the fact that we haven't organized our committee structure very well, and that's part of the reason that this fell through. It was not negligence on this particular project, but it was just the kind of loose way that we've dealt with some committee. So I think it's unfair that some of our staff are taking too much blame, both in the public and on council. And there are reasons why these things happen, and it's not all the fault of particular individuals.
And in speaking on that, there is one community safety officer with a fire department and within Huron County, so that we are probably in advance of most of our neighbors in following up what fire regulations are. And in doing that, sometimes when you're on the leading edge, there's places that get missed at times, and if you're leading the charge, you can't always get everything right. Yolanda?
I just wanted to let you know that on this coming Friday, the William Theater Committee will be accepting another donation from the Trillium Mutual Insurance Company for their Roots program. I don't exactly know the dollar amount that we're getting, but I think we're getting close to $30,000 now for donations. So,
So is that a Trillium Foundation?
no,
Sorry,
Trillium Mutual Insurance Company, Trillium Mutual Insurance Company, their Roots program.
You're doing a success story with that committee.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other points? Okay, if there's nothing else in council reports and inquiries, we'll move to 14, public gallery questions. Benny?
Seemed to me the councilor seat's question was never answered. Is the fire retardant spray a new regulation? Or was it just something that wasn't adhered to last year?
David's not here to answer that.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to contact David, he could say whether it was part of the fire code last year or not.
David or James Marshall would be able to give you more information on that than I think anybody sitting in this room. Pauline?
Just a question through to Yolanda.
October 9th, 9:30 at the theater.
Thank you.
Mind reader, good for you.
Any more, Danny? Okay. 2 points on the agenda. Okay, we need to move the camera for personnel matters with an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, development agreement update, and personnel matters with an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, personnel. Trevor and Yolanda, all in favor?